I swear it started with nothing more than her fingers brushing mine. Not a dramatic touch. Not something anyone else would have noticed. Just the kind that lands in the center of your chest before your mind can name it. She slid a folded stack of papers toward me and said, "Hold this for a second." Only she never told me when that second was supposed to end. Her name was Lena, mid-40s. The kind of woman who carried calm the way others wore perfume. Not loud about it. It just drifted off her. She had this habit of lowering her gaze when she thought too hard, like she needed to look inward before she looked at you again. I was 20-something, helping out at the community center for a few extra credits, pretending not to notice the way she filled a room. The hallway that afternoon was quiet in a way that made every small sound sharper. A copy machine hummed behind us. Someone coughed down the stairs. And then there was her, maybe 2 feet away, close enough that I could feel a faint trace of citrus from her lotion when she moved. She shifted her weight, her shoulder brushing mine as she pointed at a form. They always mix up these sections. Drives me crazy. Her voice wasn't annoyed. Not really. More like she was sharing a secret frustration she usually kept to herself. I nodded, though I barely heard the words. I was too aware of the envelope she had placed in my hand. My grip tightened when her fingers left it, as if some part of me expected her to take it back immediately. She didn't. Instead, she looked at me longer than she meant to. I could tell because her breath caught, barely, and she blinked once too slowly. Her eyes moved away, toward the window, but the rest of her stayed angled toward me. I didn't know what to do with the warmth that climbed up my neck, so I said nothing. "You're quieter today," she murmured. "I'm thinking," I said. "Oh, should I be worried?" She smiled, but the edge of it wavered, like she wasn't sure if she had crossed some line we hadn't spoken about yet. I shook my head and looked down at the papers she'd given me, though I hadn't forgotten for a second that my hand was still curved around them, still holding on, still waiting for her to tell me otherwise. Her bracelet slid down her wrist when she reached past me to grab a pen, the metal brushing my forearm. She didn't pull back fast. If anything, she paused there, barely touching me, long enough for the air between us to tighten. "You always do that," she said softly. "Do what?" "Hold your breath when I get too close." I opened my mouth, but whatever explanation I had cracked apart before it formed. She noticed. Her eyes traced my face with an attention that made everything under my skin feel exposed. Not in a bad way. More like she had caught me in some truth I didn't mean to show. She straightened, smoothing her blouse as she stepped half a pace back. Just enough distance to make me feel the absence of her. "Sorry. I didn't mean to make it weird." "It's not weird," I said quickly. Maybe too quickly. She looked at my hand. "You can let go of that now." I didn't move. She didn't repeat it. A quiet stretched between us, heavy enough that my pulse pressed against my collar. She watched me with this careful expression, like the next thing either of us said might change something we hadn't named. Then a door at the end of the hall creaked open. Footsteps. A voice calling her name. She swallowed, glanced toward the sound, then back at me. And for a moment she didn't move at all. The footsteps in the hallway grew louder, then faded again as someone called her into another room. She left with a quiet, "I'll be right back." But her eyes stayed on me for a beat too long. When the door clicked shut behind her, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. I didn't know how to explain what she did to me. I had dated girls my age. It always felt noisy, fast, like everyone was rushing toward something they didn't actually want. With Lena, everything slowed just enough for me to hear the things I usually ignored. My own heartbeat, the way someone's tone shifted when they were tired, the difference between a polite smile and one that carries weight. When she returned, she seemed more composed, but her fingers tightened around a stack of folders in a way that didn't match her voice. "Sorry. They needed a signature." She brushed past me again, her sleeve grazing my hand. A small thing, but it sent an uneven pulse through me. She must have noticed because she paused. "You okay?" "Yeah. Just thinking again." She gave a soft laugh. "You think too much. That's dangerous at your age." There it was again, the quiet reminder hiding under her words. The risk. The difference between 20 and 40-something. The way people would talk. The way she would be judged more than I ever would. She moved to the desk, sorting papers with practiced quickness. "I wasn't always like this," she said, almost to herself. "Like what?" "Careful." She tapped the edge of a folder, her thumb sliding slowly along its spine. "I used to jump into things without looking, without asking anyone if I should." I leaned against the doorway, watching how her shoulders shifted when she spoke. "And now I look too much," she said. Her voice softened. "I look until whatever I want doesn't feel possible anymore." I didn't say anything. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because she wasn't done. My last relationship ended because I kept trying to fix things that were already gone. She gave a faint shrug. "I guess it makes you wary. Makes you second-guess moments that feel too close." The word close hung in the air like she wished she could take it back. I stepped toward her. Not enough to crowd her. Just enough that she'd know I heard everything she didn't say. "I don't think you're careful. I think you're honest." She blinked, surprised. Her lips parted like she had something to add, then closed again. Her hand drifted to the edge of the desk, fingertips tapping lightly, like she needed something to ground herself. I reached for a binder beside her, and our hands brushed again. This time she didn't pull away fast. Her thumb grazed the side of my palm, slow and unintentional, then paused there, barely touching. She looked up at me, eyes searching. You should be careful with moments like this." "Why?" My voice was quieter than I meant. Her breath eased out, warm enough that I felt it on my jaw. "Because they're hard to forget." Neither of us moved. The room felt smaller, the air thicker, the silence stretched tight between us. Her hand stayed against mine, almost resting now, and she didn't let go. The moment her hand settled against mine, the door at the end of the hall snapped open again. We both jerked back a fraction too fast. Not enough to look innocent, just enough to look caught. "Lena?" A voice called. Mark, one of the volunteers. Young, loud, oblivious. She straightened, smoothing her blouse, eyes darting anywhere but me. I stepped aside as Mark walked in, glancing between us with a raised brow. Everything good?" "Fine," she said too quickly. "Just sorting forms." Mark nodded, though he kept looking at the space between us like he'd walked in on a half-finished sentence. He grabbed a box from the shelf and left as suddenly as he had come. When the door clicked again, the air seemed to empty out with it. Lena pressed a hand to her forehead. "That was close." I tried to joke, but my voice came out uneven. "We weren't doing anything." "That doesn't matter," she said. She wasn't scolding me. She sounded like she was talking to herself, trying to rebuild a wall she'd let slip. I moved toward the window to give her space. The afternoon light slanted across the room, warm and low, dust floating in slow motion between us. She joined me a moment later, though she kept her arms folded like she needed something to hold on to. "You know how this looks," she said. "To who?" "To everyone." I turned. She was staring out the window, jaw tight. Her eyes softened when they landed on me again, like she hated the reality she was acknowledging. "There's an age gap," she said quietly. "And people talk. They always talk. I don't care." "You will," she said. "Maybe not now, but later when you realize how much easier it is to be with someone your age. Someone who doesn't come with history or baggage or—" I didn't say I wanted easier. She stopped. Her breathing slowed, and her fingers loosened from around her arms. I could tell she was listening past the words, into whatever she thought I meant to say next. I didn't push, didn't move, just let the silence stretch until she turned again, her shoulder brushing the frame beside me. "That's exactly the problem," she murmured. A soft buzz interrupted us. Her phone. She glanced at the screen, and something in her posture shifted. She turned it over face down, ignoring the message, but the tension stayed in her shoulders. "Everything okay?" I asked. "It's nothing," she said, though her voice dipped. "Just someone I don't want to think about right now. An old relationship. A past she wasn't ready to reopen." the kind of interruption that carried weight even unspoken. I stepped closer without thinking. She didn't step back. Her breath caught when she felt how near I was. We were close enough that I could see a strand of hair brushing her cheek, close enough that her perfume curled through the air between us in something soft and steady. "Don't look at me like that," she whispered. "Like what?" She swallowed hard. "Like you're about to do something we can't take back." I wasn't sure who leaned in first. Maybe both of us. Our foreheads almost touched, our lips a breath apart. She hesitated, eyes flicking to my mouth, then to my eyes again. Her hand lifted as if to touch my collar, paused midair, hovered there. Seconds stretched. My pulse thudded loud enough to drown the quiet. Then she exhaled and stepped back. But only an inch. Not enough to break the moment. Just enough to pretend she had. "This is getting dangerous," she said. But she stayed right there. Close enough that neither of us could pretend we didn't want to close that inch again. The inch she left between us was nothing. A joke. A line drawn in chalk, already smudging. She stood there with her hands at her sides, like she didn't trust them, like if she reached for me once more, she wouldn't stop. I could see the conflict in the way her breath kept catching, the way she kept looking at the door, then back at me, then away again. "Lena," I said quietly. She closed her eyes for a moment, steadying herself. "Please don't say my name like that." "Like what?" "Like you're waiting for me to give in." I didn't say I wasn't. We both knew I was. She stepped around me to grab a folder from the table, but her hands shook just enough that one paper slipped free and drifted to the floor. Before she could reach it, I knelt, picked it up, and stood. When I handed it to her, she didn't take it. Her eyes stayed locked on mine. Long, too long. "Tell me to stop," I said. Her throat tightened. "I don't want to." "Then why are we pretending?" She took one small step back, pressing her fingers into the edge of the table, as if she needed something solid behind her. "Because you don't know what you're getting into. You don't know what it means for me. For you. You think I haven't thought about it? You haven't lived it," she said. Her voice cracked at the end. She hated that it did. "People saw me with my ex and assumed I was lucky to have him. They didn't see what it cost. How small I became. I won't go back to that. I won't let anyone talk about me like I'm reaching." She turned away as if ashamed she'd said too much. I stepped behind her, close enough that my chest brushed her shoulder blade when I leaned in. Not touching on purpose. Just close enough to make the air tighten. "You're not reaching," I whispered near her ear. Her breath hitched. She straightened, but she didn't move away. Instead, she let her hand fall to her side, grazing my hip by accident. Or not by accident. She didn't apologize. "You're going to ruin me," she whispered. "Then tell me to leave." Silence. Heavy. Real. She didn't tell me to leave. Something inside her broke then. Not in a painful way, but in a way that let everything spill through the cracks. She turned slowly, like she wasn't sure she had permission, and lifted a hand to my jaw. Her thumb brushed the corner of my mouth, shaky at first, then steadying. "You're too young," she said, though her hand stayed on my face. "Too kind. Too much of everything I told myself I wasn't allowed to want anymore." I closed my hand over hers gently, not pulling her closer, just keeping her there, exactly where she was. Her forehead touched mine. Barely. A whisper of contact. "Say something," she breathed. "I can't," I said. "Why?" "Because if I say what I'm thinking, I won't stop." Her lips parted. She leaned in that impossible inch we'd been dancing around for days. Her breath warmed my mouth. Her fingers curled in my shirt. My hands moved to her waist without thought. Not pulling, just holding. "Then don't say it," she whispered back. We hovered there, breath to breath. One heartbeat away from crossing the line she'd spent weeks building. And then the door handle clicked. She froze. I did too. The line was about to shatter. The door didn't open all the way. It clicked, paused, then eased shut again as if whoever was on the other side changed their mind. But the damage was done. Lena stiffened in my hands. Her breath pulled in sharp, like she'd been caught doing something illicit. Her fingers slipped from my shirt, slow and trembling, as if every inch hurt to release. "We can't," she whispered. She stepped back, but her heel hit the cabinet behind her and she stopped short. Her hands hovered midair, unsure where to go. I wasn't touching her anymore. Not really. But the space between us felt charged enough to light the walls. "What if they heard?" she said. Then they heard two people standing close. Her laugh cracked. "Don't be naive." She pushed past me, brushing my arm. The touch was small, unsteady, but it sent heat spiraling down my spine. I watched her pace once, then again, rubbing her palms against her thighs like she could scrub the moment off her skin. But she wasn't running from me. She was running from herself. "Lena," I said, stepping toward her. She held up a hand. "Don't." Her voice was thin, frayed. She looked away, then back at me, then down, unable to land on anything steady. Her throat worked, and for a second I thought she would end it right there. But she didn't. Instead, she pulled in a shaky breath and said, "I need to tell you something." I waited. The air in the room didn't move. "That message earlier," she continued. "The one I ignored. The one from someone you didn't want to think about." She nodded. "It wasn't my ex. It was my sister." I frowned. "Is she okay?" She asked if I was still getting too close to the kid at work. She flinched at her own words. "She thinks she saw us last week, in the parking lot, when you walked me to my car." I remembered that night, the way she had laughed softly at something I said, the way her coat brushed my arm, the way she paused before getting in the car, like she wanted to say something but swallowed it instead. "She assumed the worst," Lena said. "And I didn't correct her." "You didn't." My voice came out softer than I meant. "I didn't know what to say," she whispered. "Because if I denied it, it would be a lie. And if I admitted it, I didn't know what that would mean for you." She pressed a hand to her forehead. "I thought I could manage it. Keep distance. Keep it harmless." Her eyes lifted to mine. Raw. Vulnerable. "But I can't. Not with you." The room seemed to tilt. For a heartbeat, neither of us breathed. She took a step toward me before she realized she had. Her hand hovered near my chest, almost touching. I could see the conflict in her fingers, the micro tremor she tried to hide. "You scare me," she whispered. "Not because you'll hurt me, but because I want this. I want you. Enough that I stopped caring who sees." The confession hit deep, knocking the air from my lungs. I moved closer without thinking, and her breath brushed my collar. Her hand finally landed on my chest, flat and warm, like she wanted proof I was actually there. "Tell me what you want," I said. Her answer came out as a shaky exhale, her forehead drifting toward mine. "I want to stop pretending." And just as her lips parted, as her body leaned those last inches into me, a key turned in the front door of the center. Voices, footsteps, getting closer. She didn't step away this time. She grabbed my wrist instead. "Follow me," she whispered, and pulled me toward the back room. The back room was barely a room at all. More like a storage nook with old chairs stacked against the wall and a single narrow window that let in a thin slice of fading daylight. Lena shut the door behind us. Not fully, just enough to muffle the voices drifting down the hall. Her hand stayed on my wrist longer than it needed to. When she finally let go, her fingers lingered on my skin, trailing off like she had to convince herself to release me. She backed up a step, then stopped, then closed the distance again without meaning to. She looked like someone wrestling with herself and losing ground. "This is reckless," she whispered. I nodded. "I know. And impossible." "I know." Her breath trembled. "Then tell me why we're standing here like we're about to cross every line I swore I wouldn't cross again." I didn't answer, because I didn't need to. My silence said enough. The way I kept inching closer said even more. She pressed her back lightly against a shelf, like she needed something solid. Her chest rose with every unsteady inhale. I placed a hand against the wall near her shoulder, not touching her, just close enough that she felt the heat of it. Her eyes flicked to my hand, then to my mouth, then back up. Don't do that, she said softly. Do what? Look at me like you already decided. I moved my other hand to the side of her waist. Not pulling. Just resting there, warm against the fabric of her blouse. She inhaled sharply but didn't move away. If anything, her body tipped toward me only a fraction, but enough for me to feel the shift. I came in here to protect us, she said. Not to... Her voice drifted. She swallowed. Not to make this worse. What if it's not worse? I said. What if it's just honest? Her eyes closed for a moment, like she needed that pause to steady her balance. When she opened them, something had changed. Softer, braver, or maybe she was just tired of fighting the same battle inside herself. You're young, she said. You'll change your mind someday. Then let that be someday, I said. Not right now. My thumb brushed her hip. A small movement, barely anything, but her breath caught, her hand rising to curl lightly into the front of my shirt. Not pulling me closer, just holding. Tell me you want me to stop, I said. Her fingers tightened. Slow. Intentional. I can't, she whispered. The air thickened between us. She lifted her other hand, brushing a stray piece of hair off her face. My hand moved on instinct, helping her tuck it behind her ear. My knuckles grazed her cheek. She leaned into the touch without thinking. Her forehead touched my chest, just for a moment. A surrender disguised as exhaustion. I'm choosing you, she said quietly. Even though I shouldn't. Even though it scares me. I rested my hand at the base of her spine, steadying her. Then we're choosing each other. She looked up at me, eyes wide, raw, unguarded. There was no hesitation left. No apology. No excuse. If we cross this line, she said, there's no going back. We already crossed it, I said. Her lips parted. She lifted onto her toes. My hands moved to her waist. The space between us collapsed to a breath. And then she whispered, so close I could feel her words against my mouth. Then don't step away. No more running. No more pretending. We finally saw each other for exactly who we were. The door stayed shut behind us. Not locked, just resting against the frame. The voices outside drifted farther down the hall, fading into something harmless. For the first time all afternoon, neither of us moved. Lena's forehead rested against mine, our breaths mixing in the narrow space between us. She wasn't trembling anymore. She was steady in a way that felt earned, like she had fought through every doubt and landed here by choice. I slid one hand up her back, slow and careful. We don't have to rush anything, I said. She let out a soft, uneven laugh that warmed the base of my throat. After all that, you want to be patient? I want this to be real, I said. Her fingers trailed down the fabric of my shirt, smoothing it, then curling lightly at the hem as if she needed something to hold. She wasn't pulling me closer. She was grounding herself. It already is, she whispered. She leaned into me then, not in a sudden way. More like she was finally letting her body speak after hours of restraint. Her head rested against my chest. I wrapped my arms around her slowly, giving her time to pull back if she needed to. She didn't. For a long moment we just stayed like that. Her breath warm through my shirt, my chin resting lightly on the top of her head. Her hands slipping around my waist, holding on without apology. You know people will talk, she said quietly. Let them. Her fingers tightened. They'll judge me more than you. Then I'll make sure they're wrong, I said. Or irrelevant. She tilted her head back to look at me. Her eyes softened in a way I hadn't seen before. A look without fear in it, without excuses, without that instinct to pull away. Just her. Just us. You make everything sound simple, she murmured. No, I said. Just worth it. Her smile came slow, honest, a little shy. She lifted a hand to my jaw, thumb brushing along the edge of my cheek. The touch wasn't charged this time. It wasn't impatient or hesitant. It was warm, steady, real. You're going to ruin my careful life, she said. I'm pretty sure you ruined mine first. She laughed again, softer this time. She leaned up and pressed a light kiss to the corner of my mouth. Not quite a full kiss. Not a tease either. Something intimate, something that said she trusted where we were heading. She rested her forehead against mine once more, breathing me in. So what now? Now, I said, lacing my fingers gently through hers. We stop pretending we don't want this. She squeezed my hand in return. Her thumb brushed mine, slow and certain, like she was memorizing the shape of something she had finally let herself reach for. Outside, voices moved closer again. Someone laughed. Someone dropped a box. The world kept going, noisy and ordinary. But in that small back room, she leaned her head on my shoulder, and I pressed a soft kiss to her hairline. Nothing rushed, nothing reckless, just us, standing close, together, and this time neither of us stepped away. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?